Audible? Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. I don't know what I have deserved for all of you to come and listen to me on a Sunday morning. So I really appreciate it. Um, my name is Lipi, like Sir mentioned. I come from an organization called Pani Foundation, which literally translates to Water Foundation. And we work in several villages and with thousands of farmers in rural Maharashtra to try and create a people's movement for change. And I'll just take you a little bit into what that really means for us. But to start with, I would like to go back to when Pani Foundation's roots were laid, which was over 10 years ago in a TV show called Satyamev Jayate. Perhaps a few of you have watched it, or perhaps a few of you have heard about it here. Satyamev Jayate, which translates to Only Truth Shall Triumph, was a TV show from 2012 to 2014, the first ever in India that spoke about social issues in a very approachable, first-person narrative-based style. So instead of going into jargon, statistics, and intimidating information, Satyamev Jayate put forward real people and real stories of change to talk about a lot of social issues and try and inspire people to create change on those issues. Our tagline was "Dil pe lagegi tabhi baat banegi," which translates to "Only when it touches your heart can change be created." To just give you an example, this is a glimpse of some of the impact the show had, but I'll give you an example. We did a show on alcoholism, which was the first time that on a mainstream Indian channel and on a general entertainment channel, the topic of alcoholism was spoken about as a preventable and treatable disease and not as a taboo or a social evil or a social ill. We had recovered alcoholics talking about their own story. And just talking about what they went through. We also had doctors giving scientific information on what could be done to help people struggling with substance abuse and alcohol-related issues. And we also talked about Alcoholics Anonymous, which all of you may know is a free platform and helpline that helps people who would like to move from abuse to recovery. So the number of Alcoholics Anonymous was shared on the TV show along with this very inspiring narrative-based communication style. And within 2 weeks of the show airing, and this was in 2012, so pre-WhatsApp, pre-social media era, Alcoholics Anonymous registered 3.5 lakh people from India into recovery. And up until that date, it had 30,000 members in India, and in 2 weeks it registered these many. And Alcoholics Anonymous created a record for the largest campaign against de-addiction in a single year. And this happened because of the power of communication. Similarly, impact was seen on several different levels, right from families talking about child sexual abuse in their own houses for the first time, clinics boldly saying that we do not do sex determination tests, governments cracking down on female feticide and sex-selective abortions, governments doing policy changes also in several cases, and India's first law against child sexual abuse, the first amendment to the POCSO Act, finally being passed after the Satyamev Jayate episode aired, because people came together. They felt inspired, they took action, they wrote in, they put pressure, and this happened because of the power of communication. At the end of the day, however, Satyamev Jayate was a TV show. So every Sunday, a different episode would air. So this Sunday, it's alcoholism, next Sunday, it's something else. So 3 Sundays later, you've really even forgotten what you watched in the alcoholism episode. And we were not strangers to this format. And we knew that to create sustained impact on ground, a TV show was not going to do it. So we thought to ourselves after 24 episodes of the show, that what if we use this style, which is this first person inspiring, immersive, engaging power of communication and work consistently and sustainably on one issue on ground. Would we be able to make any difference? We did not know the answer. We asked ourselves this question, and the answer was born in the form of Pani Foundation. Water scarcity and drought is a generational crisis in Maharashtra, which has ravaged thousands of villages. With water scarcity, hunger, thirst, migration at scale, and in the worst of cases, death has also been seen in Maharashtra. As per the National Crime Records Bureau in 2022, the data that they had released, Maharashtra leads in India's agriculture-related suicides and accounts for 38% of the national total. So this was the crisis we had in front of us. And why did we choose water? Because water is at the center of all our lives, at the center of lives and livelihood, education, equity, equality, healthcare. And we believe that water is really the foundation of prosperity. Once you solve for water, you can add in several layers, and a lot of transformation in a comprehensive manner can happen. So we started Pani Foundation to use this power of communication and see, explore, investigate what impact could we create on water scarcity and the drought crisis in Maharashtra. So we began with research. What did we learn most importantly? That the solution to solving for drought, which is water conservation, or in cities what we call rainwater harvesting, is really not rocket science. It's a low-cost scientific technology that can be adopted quite easily at scale. In fact, Maharashtra has a few model villages which rank #1 in India for decentralized watershed management. A few of you here may have heard of Anna Hazare and Popatrao Pawar, whose villages Hivre Bazar and Ralegan Siddhi are essentially prosperous havens. So when you visit Hivre Bazar, which is a model prosperous village in Maharashtra, you will see that the villages next to it are drought-stricken. So why is it that Hivre Bazar has flourished when literally the villages next to it are drought-stricken? So in our conversation with veterans and 2 years of research on ground, we realized that because the know-how exists, but it has no scale, it has no taking. We are often dependent on a cycle where somebody else will come and create a watershed structure in our village, and then years go by. We also realize that this crisis of drought is largely human-made. While of course this crisis is natural, but it's exacerbated by human mismanagement of water and natural resources in today's world, made even worse by climate change, which is irrefutably something that humans have created. So this crisis is largely human-made. The solution exists, but there is no offtake for this solution, which is why Hivre Bazar is prosperous while villages around it are not. So we asked ourselves, could communication play a role in closing this gap of taking this solution to scale? And we realized that for that to happen, we didn't need to only popularize the science of watershed management, but really work on what was preventing people from taking it to scale, which is social fractures. Now, if I ask any of you that if you are to drink water with your hands from a lake, how are you going to do it? So can you show me how are you going to do it? Like, how would you take? Exactly. Can you do it, ma'am, with just one hand? Can you do it with 2 fingers? Maybe not. All the fingers of one's hands need to come together to take water, just as all the sections of society need to unite for this crisis to be solved. In India, we are so fragmented by barriers of class, caste, age, political factionalism, religion, that it prevents people from coming together to do something about having water as a community resource. Now, if you have to work on watershed management, if you have to do rainwater harvesting in, at scale in Mumbai city, for example, people will have to give their part of their terraces for those structures to be created. Now in some colony, if 5 houses say, I'm not going to do it, you may not be able to achieve that rainwater harvesting at scale. Similarly, in a village, when a watershed is identified and you have to create water structures, conservation structures on it, people need to come together to give their land, to give their labor, to give their time, to give their resources, to really create those structures at scale. And that is what social fractures is a barrier to achieving. So we set out to, number one, harness social unity in rural Maharashtra with the power of communication. And number two, spread this knowledge and science of watershed management far and wide so that the solution, along with know-how, also gets scale. So how did we do it? It was a 3-step process. For the first time in India, we hosted a very unique competition between villages to do the best work in water and soil conservation. So think about it like your IPL for water. So we wanted to create a platform of joy and enthusiasm for villages to train and then implement this science and really not make it an arduous, very scary thing to do. So first we hosted an immersive residential training where villagers would come. 5 people had to come from every village. 2 or more than 2 compulsorily had to be women. And you come and you take the training. In this training, in 3 days, you can't learn about the 30 different types of watershed structures and the technical aspects. So we focused on principle of Satyamev Jayate. Dil pe lagegi, tabhi baat banegi. Only when it touches your heart shall it inspire you to make a difference. So this training really immersed villagers into the why of working on this problem. It made them think about how this is a generational crisis. It enabled them to share their experiences and really feel inspired via very interesting games, activities, films and songs. So here is where we used our strengths as communicators to create this immersive training. After the training, villages, the 5 villagers had taken the training. They would go back and they would inspire many others in the village to join this. The village would choose to take part in the competition. Again, something very important, our entire work is demand driven. So if you take the training and you go back and you feel it was useless, you don't have to take part. This is not a mandatory activity that you are doing. You have to show the willingness to take part in this competition, and people have to come together. The village has to together sign a resolution and send a letter of participation for the competition. And then the village was given all the technical resources, training, field support on ground. And in a pre-monsoon 45-day competition period, entire villages would unite with together to offer labor to create these structures and also entrepreneurially raise funds to create watershed structures. So again, I'm saying this that the village would come together and do it because Pani Foundation does not give a single rupee to a single village. We only create an ecosystem of motivation, training, hand-holding, resources, networks, partnerships, and then leave it to the people themselves to then take it forward. So if the ecosystem has strength in it, the people will take it forward, which is what we realized over 4 years of the Water Cup competition. We started as a social experiment in 2016 in just 116 villages in Maharashtra. Over 4 years, on the 4th year, the movement had reached 4,706 villages. And over 4 years, we had worked with over 6,000 villages in total, trained over 55,000 villagers directly in the science of watershed management, and supported all of these villages on ground as they were creating structures. In 2019, at the peak of the movement, in the heat of summer, we had over 1.5 lakh people in rural Maharashtra every single day coming out to build these structures to conserve water. And the impact was this. Structures amounting to miles and miles were created. So 7,006 kilometers is length of continuous contour trenches that was built, which is almost twice the distance from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. So this is what the villagers did with their own efforts in terms of scale of creating the structures with the ecosystem that Pani Foundation had enabled. And the impact was that through their own capacity over 4 years, the village's work led to over 550 billion liters of water harvesting capacity being created in the state. So really this was an entirely people-owned effort that happened, and I would now like to just take a pause and request the team to show a short film that will take you through a visual journey of how this had happened.
The blistering heat of May and June creates a yearning for the rains. And then, every year, the monsoon arrives. Sometimes it's plentiful, sometimes scarce, but come it does every year. And so it did this year too.
त्या दिवशी पहिला पूर आला आणि शिशिट्या अशा टुम भरल्या, तळे टुम भरले. सकाळी 7 वाजता जाऊन पूर्ण लोक ते डोंगरा बघून असे उड्या मारत होते, तळेत नाचायला पावायला लागले, असे हे माझं पाणी म्हणून म्हणून.
मी जे शेततळ तयार केलं तर ते शेततळ भरलेलं बघून मला आनंद मायलने मी पहिल्यांदा उडी मारल्यावर बाकीची लेकरं उडी मारली.
अनुभव असा म्हणजे की पावसामध्ये पोरांनी लगेवर जाऊन शूटिंग केली, एवढं भारी दिसायला की वाटायला लागलं हे काम संपायला नाही पाहिजे, तर पूर्ण डोंगर शिवारच निघायला पाहिजे होता.
In thousands of Maharashtrian villages this year, it is as if a miracle occurred. This year, the rainwater did not leave villages. It made its home there. This has been achieved by a people's movement. The fruit of the sweat and toil of those who took on the mission of making their villages water abundant by taking part in the Satyamev Jayate Water Cup contest. Both government and prominent leaders of industry generously supported this people's initiative. The contest started in the year 2016 with just 3 talukas in Maharashtra. Expanded in 2017 to 30 talukas and grew 25 times this year, 2018, to reach 75 talukas across Maharashtra. More than 4,000 villages participated. Over a 2-month period, more than 20,000 villagers were trained in the science of watershed management. These villagers then returned to their villages to sow the seeds of a water revolution. The Water Cup was scheduled to begin on the 8th of April. But from the night of April 7th itself, lakhs of water warriors, fully armed to take on the drought, kept vigil for the battle to begin. At the stroke of midnight, their army launched a determined attack to vanquish drought. A wild dream to free oneself in just 45 days from the shackles of drought with one's own might. People joined hands, putting aside social divisions and old rivalries. With every passing day, the army of water warriors grew. In these 45 days, the rising and setting sun saw many a miracle unfold. Somewhere it was woman power, elsewhere the determination of youth, or even an army of children.
मी सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांना तयार केलं व आमची एक घट्ट तुफान सेना तयार करायची. माझी 150 मुलांची टीम आहे.
Even seniors, uncaring of their aches and pains, worked obsessively towards a brighter future for coming generations.
आम्हाला सुद्धा एक तकलीफ होती, संध्याकाळी अंग दुखते, पैसा नसतो इंजेक्शनला, तर 2ला सुटल्यानंतर दुसऱ्याचा रोजगार करायचा, तिथून 4 रुपये आणायचे आणि मग इंजेक्शन करायचं. पण काम नाही सोडलं, जशी सुट्टी घेतलीच नाही.
By day, the sun was witness to people's madness, and when by night the baton was handed over to the moon, it saw thousands doing shramdan without a moment's rest. Those 45 days became a festival of labor, full of song, dance, and celebration. By the time the competition came to a close, this grand obsession had transformed the face of entire landscapes. Driven by this collective madness, villagers who had once struggled for a single tanker of water created with their own hands structures that could harvest more than 222 billion liters of water. If filled in tankers of 10,000 liter capacity, this quantity of water would fill more than 22 million tankers. And if these tankers were lined up, they would circumnavigate the earth more than 3 times. It is this human spirit, this determination, that has kept the rains captive in village after village this year. People are celebrating their newfound affinity with water. Nature and mankind are dancing with joy as they become one.
Thank you for that. Currently, over the last 3 years, we have built on this prosperity for water and are currently working with farmers at scale to achieve livelihood prosperity now that several villages have become water abundant. We also realize the importance of not stopping at conservation of water, but also working on managing the resources that we have. And this management is not possible without working on agriculture, because agriculture accounts for 90% of all water usage in India. So currently, we are associated with, we are working with over 50,000 farmers in Maharashtra on sustainable agriculture practices and water efficient practices as well. Now, why is this story important for all of us here? Yes, this has happened close by, maybe a few hours away in several villages, even the farmers are there. But why is this important for all of us here? Because we believe that perhaps what the villagers of Maharashtra have done gives us all a pathway, a method to solve several problems at scale. And let me just share that method with you again. So number one is passion or motivation. The willingness that this is my problem and I am willing to solve it. And I am willing to do what it takes to solve it. That this is not only my problem, but it's my privilege to be the solution to my own problem. So passion or willingness, motivation. Second one, knowledge. Scientific knowledge or training in terms of both technical and social skills into what it will take to really solve the problem at scale, and willing to learn and take action. So second is knowledge, and third is people or participation, where the involvement of people unitedly wanting to come together to solve the problem really is the key to unlocking transformation. Now, why are these three aspects important? Because let's assume you have the motivation and you have the people, but you have no knowledge of what to do. Where are you going to even get started? Or you only have the knowledge, but you have no motivation and you are not a united force wanting to do something together. So again, you are stuck. So all of these elements together play a role in enabling us to find a method and find a mode of working together to solve any problem that we may have at scale. So this is not a method that is limited to water conservation or limited to rural Maharashtra in our experience, and that is really what the villagers today have taught us and shown us that anything is possible, and together we can be unstoppable. Thank you so much. Perhaps if we have 4 or 5 minutes, we can take some questions. Thank you.
Anyway,
I can hear you.
very inspiring. Thank you very much indeed. Your statistics ended a few years ago with
Yeah.
thousands of schools. What has happened, the thousands of villages, what has happened since then, and how has the movement continued?
So the movement has continued by Pani Foundation deepening its work on water. So we first worked on water conservation at scale, and now we are building on using that impact on water and translating it really to farmer livelihoods and rural prosperity. So like I had mentioned, water is really the bedrock of rural transformation. So currently, like I mentioned, sir, we are working with 50,000 farmers. We have launched a new competition now called the Satyamev Jayate Farmer Cup. It's the 3rd year of the competition, where farmers are coming together as collectives and working on sustainable and water efficient practices to improve their productivity and income, and also reduce their cultivation costs at scale. So now we are building on this impact of water and really working on water management, which is the I would say the most important thing in this fight against drought. Because you can conserve 100 liters of water, but if you use it to just unscientifically grow a water intensive crop, you are again back to that cycle of drought. So currently we are working on fighting drought in a more comprehensive manner by focusing on water management, agriculture and livelihood prosperity.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Being an educator here, we are in Mumbai. How can we get involved?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I will, perhaps I can write to the school whenever we have volunteering opportunities where students and teachers can get involved. Perhaps you can work alongside farmers in their fields to work on a sustainable agriculture practice like de-weeding or harvesting, and also spread the word that this is happening just a few hours away in many villages in Maharashtra. No, I have Ritika's email address, but I can figure out who to write to. Yeah. Cool, thank you so much. Yeah, there's one question there.
Just following up from the previous question, you said that you are working with the farmers, and I find that is amazing. But would you also try and grow the movement with the water capacity building, or you're just focusing on the farming right now?
So currently we are focusing on farming, but what we do have is all of our resources, like all of our technical training, videos, manuals, everything that we had created is in the public domain. And we have seen many other villages use our videos and information to start this work themselves. So currently we don't have the bandwidth to work on both, but we do have the resources out there for anybody who would like to take it up. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.